one. I try to just take, bits from here and there and try to apply them to my life if they are, applicable. Other ones aren't really that useful for your personal life. They're just, things that you want to experiment with, and things that I just find interesting, like metaphysical stuff, it's interesting, right? Things about the first principles and what exists and what doesn't. It's pretty interesting stuff, you know. But for example, I used to be a huge fan of Stoicism, right? I used to love it, like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and all these people. Like it was a real interesting thing for me because one of the reasons why I stopped really using Stoicism was because of how much cognitive dissonance it caused for me, right? Because it's sort of like it seems to be like trying to get at the idea that we want to be in accordance with nature, right? Which is what Stoicism is all about, being in accordance with nature, right? If you were in accordance with nature, you wouldn't suffer, you'd be fine. It seems like it's just the denial of nature, right? Because it's like you've sort of conveniently placed yourself outside of nature as if you weren't a part of it all. And then after that point, you sort of told yourself, well, all I have to do is just accept everything that comes my way and deal with it, and then I won't suffer, right? And so that really does make absolutely no sense because human nature implies suffering, right? We are built to suffer. Sadness is a real human emotion, and so just you can play all sorts of mental games where you tell yourself like if I just accept that this is what nature has given me, then I can deal with it. You can say that, and it might work for you, but it might not.
Mm.
It all depends on the person. You have different genes, different genetic makeups. That's why I
Different
really,
experiences, even.
exactly. And even when you consider the idea of what philosophy is optimal, I don't think there is an optimal philosophy for everyone. I think I don't even think there's an optimal morality for everyone. I think people need different moralities. People have different personalities. That's one of my beefs with like you know all these universal religions, right? Religions that try to sort of sell you the same self-help book for everyone, right? Like the Bible or the Quran or whatever, right? As the guide that this is how everyone should behave. It's like, well, that's unrealistic. People cannot do that. People have different personalities. They have different ways of thinking. They have different experiences. They have different everything. They have different genes, right? Up to the genetic level, we're completely different. So the idea that one set of morality that's universal should be applied to everyone is ridiculous. You know, do you think that you should, ask someone to handle life when there's someone that just has just a burst of anger every 5 minutes? You think that person should be asked to handle life the same way that a person who sort of has their shit together, doesn't really get angry, is able to take different factors into consideration and react to that? You think those two people should have the same moral code? They can't. They cannot do it. They can't abide by that. And so what we need to do is
Well,
create.
can't they?
I don't think they
Couldn't
can.
two people that are opposite, are at extremes of the spectrum, sort of learn from each other and come to a place where they're more in the middle?
But they're not going to have the same morality. I mean, they might say they do. They might even believe it. They might be like, yeah, this is what I think is right. But in terms of what they're going to be able to do, they're not going to be able to behave the same way.
That's a good point. That's a good
I,
point because it's kind
I
of like
don't.
it takes me back to a quote that I read somewhere on a wall a long time ago. It said like, "Who are you when you're alone?"
Yeah.
And that's a good point you're making there. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like that's a good point you're making there because like we can assume what we do in a situation until we're confronted with it. We really don't know.
hmm well, yeah. I mean, just for example, in terms of let's not even look at people on an emotional level. Let's look at people in terms of potential, right? Like someone like Einstein, for example, right? Someone like Einstein it's not a common person, right? The average individual can work their entire lives and never even come close to anything like the discoveries of Einstein. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I know I couldn't. No matter how much I studied, I'm never gonna, figure out relativity or anything like that. I mean, he figured it out for me, and I still don't fucking understand it.
Right. Well, and then there's a bunch of geniuses working on it right now, and a lot of them just don't ever. I mean, most of them never get to anything even close to the level of what Einstein was doing, right? So if we accept that people have different, intellectual potentials just to start, like not even on an emotional level, right? Would you expect those two people to live their lives the same way? Right? It would be sort of ridiculous. Like if I know I don't have the potential to do this, then my aspiration, right, should not be like, okay, I have to change, the way the world thinks about itself, our understanding of the way things work, right? If I'm someone who doesn't have that potential, then why would I, abide by that morality? My morality would be, okay, how can I take care of shit for myself and try to make the best, world for the people around me, right? That would be better than let me change the fucking world and the way that everybody looks at everything. And that's a personal morality, right? Like your goals are reflections of your personal moralities. It's like this, because what is morality other than ideas about how you should behave, about what you should do and what other people should do?
Yeah, I
That
guess that comes to the point of like, because a lot of people like to put out, and I guess that's sort of where the pitfall is with this whole, nowadays with participation trophies and all this bullshit. That everybody has the potential to be the same, but I don't think, or everybody has the potential to, yeah, everybody has the same potential, but I guess it's more like everybody has the potential to be what they want to be.
well, I mean, it depends on what you want to be. I guess.
Right, right. That's what I mean. Like, because like a lot of people will say like, well, anybody could be Einstein. A lot of people will be like, if you work hard enough, anybody could be Jay-Z. If no, you can't.
That's
Like, I
not.
can't. I don't have like Jay-Z supposedly never writes down any of his rhymes. I don't have the ability to remember what the fuck I said to you 2 minutes ago. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like, that dude can remember, whatever, however long his catalog of songs is.
Yeah.
Um, and on that same token, like you said, we don't have the potential to be Einstein. So I have the potential to be something greater maybe than I am now, but my own version of it, not necessarily Einstein's version of it.
Exactly. Well, that's why I think that people should have different moralities, right? So, for example, if someone like Einstein has a certain potential, and I don't have that potential, but I spend my whole life trying to do what Einstein was doing, right? Trying to accomplish something on that level, I may as well just waste my life following something that just isn't good for me and isn't good for anyone around me, right? But if
Right.
I adopted a personal morality of doing something that is on my level and doing it well, I may have, figured out something else that I can do that might have actually changed the world, right? Incidentally, I may have, changed the world for a bunch of people around me. I may have, ended up starting a charity or, a children's hospital or, you know, anything that may have actually, changed the course of things or inspired change in someone else. But if I would have wasted my life following something that's, above what I can do, then I may have well have wasted my life, right? So it's like you have a certain amount of power, right? Under the assumption that we have free will, for example. And if you use it in a way that's, above what you can do, then you might just waste it. But if you do something that's at your level and you do it well, then you're going to get pretty far, right? You can get pretty far that way. So it's the difference in morality based on who the person is and what suits them. It's pragmatism. It's figuring out what's useful for the individual. And I think it matters, but I don't think we see it that way. I think we like to lie to ourselves because it makes us feel better. But ultimately, we still face the consequences of the truth because if something is true, it's true whether or not we believe it.
I think parents are probably most guilty of that because we tend to look at our kids as, they have the potential to be anything, rather than, you know, this is this child's potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think parents, well, it's not just parents. I mean, especially here in the States. I mean, we have this huge system of indoctrination where they tell kids, even in, even on TV, Hollywood, all that good stuff, as soon as they're born, like, you can do anything you set your mind to. And, if you look at a person through the lifespan, you realize, for example, a kid at 4 years old wants to be an astronaut, right? Big aspiration. Very few people ever get there, right? It's a very limited crowd, the whole astronaut field. It's really difficult to get to that point. What happens when the kid at 4 years old finally starts school? He takes a science class. He finds it boring. He gets out of the science. He gets out of his dream, right? He decides, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be in space. I didn't want all this boring shit in my life. It's a waste of time. I'm not doing it, right? So then he goes, a couple of grades higher, right? Let's say he's in high school, for example. And now he's like, well, I just figured out something awesome called basketball. Basketball is fun as hell. And now I want to be in the NBA, right? So he went from like astronaut, now I want to be in the NBA, right? Because I can play basketball, I can do this, and it's not boring, it's fun, I love it. And he just keeps doing it, he keeps practicing every single day after school, he trains with the team, he does what he can. But there's a part of him that has this doubt, right? This like, okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Is this really something I can accomplish, right? And then he starts watching documentaries and he looks at the competition. And then what's more, he even looks at, the life of actual NBA players, like you're far away from your family. You got all these issues going on. You're famous, so you have to handle that. You got all this money, but you might end up broke if you don't know how to handle it right. There's all these different factors going on. And ultimately, the kid decides against becoming a basketball player. He abandons that dream, and he ends up becoming, I don't know, an accountant, right? So we went from astronaut to accountant, right? And that happens to people because they see at a young age, they're programmed with all this bullshit of you can do anything, right? Which doesn't mean, and what I'm getting at here isn't the idea that people should abandon their dreams. I'm just saying that people should, if you have a dream, make sure, right, that it's something that you're knowledgeable of. Like, think hard and wide about what dream you want to chase. What is the lifestyle going to be like when you accomplish the dream? Why do you want this? What is your potential and how do you know? Like, how can you prove to yourself that you have the potential to get something done? How likely are you to succeed? Are you willing to accept the consequences of failure? And what are you going to do if you fail? Do you have a plan B? Like, all these things we have to think about. But we never talk to people about that because we like, getting sentimental. And when you get sentimental, what you end up with is shit like, follow your dreams or do what you love, which is great. It's not a bad thing to follow a dream. So it's a bad thing if that's the end of your analysis. If your whole analysis is I'm going to become an astronaut and you don't figure out what astronauts do, how do you become one, how long it takes, what is the process like, what's the level of competition. If you do the fun part, that you ignore the hard part, then why are you doing this? Because it's not a dream, it's an illusion. Right? It's a dream. It's only real. It's only concrete if you understand what it consists of. If you understand what you're going to be doing. An astronaut, right? They know what they're doing. They know what their job is. They know what it consists of. They know how many days they have to stay there. They know the in and outs. They're already in it. We don't. You don't know what something is like until you do it, right? You might say you want to be a medical doctor. You don't know if you want to be a medical doctor for sure 100% until you do it. Until you're there, and by then maybe it's too late. So dreams are complicated, man. I'm actually making a little video, a podcast about that. I've been thinking about this recently. I think people have a very simplistic view on chasing your passions, and I think it's way more complex than that.
Look, your passions can change over your life. I mean, look, you brought up the example of a 4-year-old. Since my daughter, since she's been 4, she's like, I want to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, chef. Like she wants to be all 4. She doesn't really understand any of those things, and until she starts growing up and learning more, and she's watched me cook, she watches her mom cook, she watches her grandparents cook, she finds that the aspect of helping fun. But until you've had to, like, say, prepare an entire paella by yourself, you don't really know if you're going to enjoy cooking. You're right.
So we have to consider that. We have to consider as many variables as we can before we go after something. Because and it's not to like, because if you tell that to someone, they can end up like sort of paralyzed, right? Like, nah, I'm not gonna do anything now because I don't know what to do because there's too many things to consider, right? And that's
Yeah,
not
where the option is just dive into as much as possible till you figure it out.
right. It's just like try your best to figure things out and plan ahead and see why you want to do this, what the process is like, and what it feels like to do that. Like imagine yourself in the situation, in the dream, already happening all around you, right? That's really the best way to get at it, right? Because what I'm preaching here is not the idea of like abandon your dreams. You're probably going to be mediocre, which is what some people do. I don't think that's a good
No, I
route.
think what you're saying is right. You're saying really you have to really immerse yourself into things and understand them before you choose them as your passion.
Right. Try to figure out what it is that you're doing here and why you're doing it and plan ahead. Like really take it into consideration. Don't just like be oversimplistic and be like, I want this, I'm gonna try it and see what happens. Because that's not good enough because you don't really know where you're getting yourself into. Like try to know where you're getting yourself into. That's what I'm preaching here.
No, I think you're 100% right, man. Because like, look, I've been through many iterations of myself. Like I've been, a martial art teacher. I've been, a healthcare worker. I've been a security guard. I almost got into law enforcement. I literally just I stopped the process myself. I was going to be in Homeland Security. Like I just decided, no,
Like
I don't want to do it. And but I had to go through all those iterations to really know. And nowadays I'm like, man, there's two things that I think about all the time. Like, man, I really should have just stuck to the martial arts gym life. Like it's something that really brought me a lot of love and passion to like teach martial arts to kids and adults, and the idea of running my own gym or school is still something that I hope I get to achieve in my lifetime.
mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like I went through all these different iterations, and my most recent career has been in healthcare, and I've been really really good at it. But I'm kind of like I was like, the fact that I'm good at it doesn't mean that it's what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And it's why I've been trying to pick up podcasting and all these things again, because I've always felt like. So one of the biggest not, points that I always points of one of the biggest things that I guess I should say I got complimented on at my job was that I'm a good teacher. And I never really thought of being a teacher outside of like the martial arts context.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's what something like podcasting is allowing me, is the to sort of not just explore my own ideas, but sort of spread ideas and sort of get people thinking. Because that's what I like about the teaching aspect. It's like that moment when you can make people have that moment where you can see that a person got it, that they just leveled up. You know what I mean? Their thinking expanded, or their physical ability expanded. That moment where they level up, that brings me joy, man. That makes me feel good. You know what I mean? But it took for me to go through all the different iterations of as a professional that I had to go through to figure this out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things that you see in martial arts, especially in Brazilian jiu-jitsu when you're training and you learn a new technique, or you see somebody learn a new technique, right? Even a new kid, and then you even get caught in that new technique that you saw that person learn. Especially if it's someone from another dojo, they pull up and they're a more advanced belt. They never train with your with your jiu-jitsu coach, right? And they learn a new technique, and they're so advanced that they end up using it on you. That's you witnessing like the transfer of knowledge from one brain to another. Like information just got transferred from one brain to another, and it was applied, and you were affected by it directly. Right? That's how you can see the power of information. I mean, martial arts are an awesome way to understand, teaching and just transmitting information in general, because it's a more difficult thing to teach than a lot of other stuff. Because math on a board, you can sort of see that, but in jiu-jitsu, it's a whole movement that you have to teach, right? When you teach a technique, when you teach someone how to get an armbar, right, from the closed guard, you're teaching them an entire set of movements, right? It's not just 1, 2, 3. You can break it down sort of into different little steps, but it's an entire movement, right? that person has to memorize and then apply. The whole thing about teaching, and this is why I love this whole podcast thing, the whole YouTube thing that I'm doing, Twitter, all of that, is because of the feedback, right? Because it's not just me teaching, it's me learning, right? Like I try to read,
right.
I try to read, I try to figure things out, and then after I'm able to, put my ideas out there, I get feedback, right? And oftentimes the feedback is people disagreeing with me, and sometimes they're wrong, but sometimes they're right, And so that makes me learn, and that feedback makes my ideas better. So that next time I give someone my ideas, they're better ideas, and it's a cycle of growth between yourself and the people that interact with you, and that's the sort of environment that I'm trying to create.
I hear you, man. That's exactly what I got into this for. Because at the end of the day, man, like if you go through life not trying to, I guess, since we were talking about potential, not trying to meet what your potential is, not necessarily what the potential you were told, but what your actual potential is, then I think you said it perfectly. It's a life wasted,
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, because I got like maybe 2-3 minutes left before I gotta run.
Yeah.
I posted this yesterday on Twitter. I saw it and I had to retweet it. What do you think about John Hopkins is getting into psychedelic research now?
I think that's fucking awesome. I mean,
Right?
till now it's been like MAPS mostly doing the psychedelic research. They've been leading the front, but now it's becoming more mainstream because of how promising the research has been. I think the more promising the research is, which it's been incredibly helpful so far, the more we're going to see psychedelic research. We've already seen some states in the U.S. legalize, mushrooms. So I think it's just going to keep growing, and we're sort of in a revival of understanding psychedelics, right, from a health perspective, but it's going to grow to a personal perspective, I think. And the more we understand these plants and their transformative value, the effect they can have on someone's personality and someone's well-being, the more we're going to understand ourselves. I think it's awesome that this is happening. I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah, I heard a quote yesterday. I think it was on Joe Rogan's pod. It was the one he did with Penn Jillette recently, where it was something to the effect. I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but said that in the 60s we thought we were discovering people. We really were discovering drugs.
Yeah.
And I think that it's good that we're sort of re-entering that age now, because just like you said, man, I see the huge potential in these things, and I got super excited about the idea of John Hopkins. Something I just thought I wanted to bring that up real quick, because John Hopkins is such a big, research organization that I was like, whoa, now it's not just MAPS. MAPS is like, it's pretty big, right? But it's like, it's its own thing, and it exists sort of in its fringe of psychedelic research, where John Hopkins is into everything. And so I was like, oh, that's so dope, man. That's pretty exciting news, man.
They're very respected.
Yeah. So listen, man. I gotta run because I hear my son going nuts out there. I'm sure my wife needs a break. Again, you're the Modern Ape on Twitter. Just give out all your stuff, your YouTube channel and everything, real quick.
Yeah. Well, my YouTube channel is The Modern Ape, which is just the 3 words Modern Ape stuck together. And on Twitter, it's the same. Just The Modern Ape, all 3 words stuck together, no spaces. That's it.
Great. All right, thanks again for doing this, man. I'm sure we'll have more conversations again in the future. Again,
Sure.
Shout out to Brian Stone and his band Contortion. They're out on tour right now. If you're on the West Coast, check that out. Go to their Instagram, I believe, was Contortion Official, and their Twitter is also Contortion Official, isn't it? Let me look it up real quick so I give out the right information. Contortion_official, or at Contortion O. If you want to check them out, check out their website for tour dates. Thanks again, man. We'll talk. This is good.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, brother.